since the minute he got Earthside. And but he did not respond to checking in. But he's on Discord, so I can see which games he's playing. I love that. I'm like, oh, he's been playing this and this one, so he's still alive. And he is so much our kiddo is that he will respond, I'm not dead. I'm like, thank you for checking in.
I'm just on the show. Simple to the point.
That's why we're asking.
Yeah.
I'm not dead.
I guess.
And what's weird is he knows like pop culture. Like we can do 90s songs and he knows stuff. I'm like, how do you know that? I don't know if he just absorbs it from us because everything's a song in our house. Like and like, who doesn't go, choreograph their life? And
Boring.
he'll just pop up with like things of like, who taught you that? He's like, YouTube. I'm like, okay. There has been request on if the slides will be available afterwards. And so the individuals who didn't know last year that there is a attendees only, and hopefully I wasn't being sending you all that and it wasn't up there on the web. But if you for right now until it gets a little old.
Sorry.
If you
and it's my work for so there's not a lot. Not true.
It's at the bottom right now, but it's IDP 2024. So if you get home and you're like, I don't remember, the videos are going to be there. And once I process those in a couple of days, and then everybody's information is on there, but you'll get a button that will have any of them that have slides or anything that they would like you to have. You will get those available afterwards. So
they have to, like, usually you have to have them voted on chambers.
I think that's going to be a good spot for that.
Well, they're probably so long.
The attorneys are discussing things on what they're going, who's going to talk to what. Okay.
So we didn't meet ahead of time. So,
I mean,
this is how it's going. This is a legal and business panel. The business individual did not show up from the chamber.
We'll touch on business.
Yeah. He does like mergers and acquisitions. So like if you've seen the I think it's The Life of Brian or one of those for Monty Python, they're the pirates and they go into their, I was like, that is so cool. That's a merger and acquisition. So how dirty I am. But I was a little kid. And that's what he does. But he didn't mean to tell. Funny Better and Katie, Jennifer. And then in the middle is Candelaria Saldana.
You don't need to read my bio.
I just do the first sentence.
Okay. Yeah.
Is an associate in Caldwell's Capital Markets Group. He's also part of the Polly Murray LGBT Bar Association, and Connie was one of the co-founders, and Katie's the secretary, and Candelaria is the president.
And I can add and subtract, so I'm like the treasurer for like 5 different organizations. So I will turn it over to them.
Hi, everyone. So I think I'll get the ball rolling a little bit just because one of my biggest things is, as you can see, Create the Vote. So I also sit on the board for the National LGBTQ Task Force. And one of our biggest campaigns right now is Create the Vote. And I think throughout the conference, several people mentioned voting, right? I think we all know why, because it's an election year, but also because so much is at stake for our LGBTQ community and for all marginalized groups in reality. So if we talk about the LGBTQ community, the intersectionality of it, right? Disability, we're people of color, we are poor, we're rich, we're everything, right? Like we're Muslim, we're Christian, we're Catholic, we walk every single walk of life. And there's so much at stake, not only just for the fact of our LGBTQ identities, but also if we fit some of those other marginalized groups. So it's very important to just make sure that you're doing everything in your power to get the vote out. And not only to vote yourself, but to actually get people enthused about voting. And why do I mention getting them enthused about voting is because in reality, I'm not enthused about voting either, right? I'm being asked to vote, at least in the presidential election, I'm being asked to vote for 2 people that I don't really care about. Trump on the one side and Biden on the other, who, on at least from my perspective, has not done much for the immigration community, actually pretty horrible for the immigration community, has not lived up to all of his promises regarding student loans, trying, not completely his fault. But at the same time, I don't really identify with him and his agenda and what he has to do. And so I'm going to get out and vote, and I'm going to get people to go out and vote, because the alternative, and I'm not asking you to vote for anyone, I can actually tell you, like, I can, as a 501c3, you can actually talk about the negative of one candidate, right? And what they've actually said. And so Trump, his history for the LGBT community is not the greatest, right? And so that was one of my biggest fears, is what land will we be living in if we end up having him as president again, and possibly not even president, but for until he dies. So elections. Yeah.
The other piece of it is not voting, is voting.
It is voting, yes.
So you don't get to sit out.
Yeah. And so according to the Washington Post, so 2020 election, right, another presidential election, 7 to 8% of the overall electorate was LGBTQ. This number has actually probably grown, given that, one, we have 4 years of younger individuals now becoming eligible to vote, and we know is that the younger demographic is actually identifying as LGBTQ a lot more than normal, right? So that demographic has grown, so we need to make sure that we get them out to actually vote. And so there's so much that you can do. You can donate to organizations that are already doing the work, right? Or on the day of, pick up a friend or two, or rent a van and get 10 people to vote. Or if you're able to take the day off and do that all day long, right? And I know like Lyft and Uber oftentimes also offer free rides, so encourage people to go that way. So let's talk a little bit about numbers, because we all talk about these elections, and it's very crazy because in November 2020, 78.14% of voters actually showed up in Union County, 71.9% in Mecklenburg. So pretty decent turnout, right? Like, it's not bad. We'd love to see 100%, but 79%, 78 and 71, I'll take that. November 2022, which was a midterm election, was 51.14% of the entire state of North Carolina. Still not horrible, but 51% is pretty bad. Like, I mean, this is why elections have consequences. Look at where we're at now and what we're going to be discussing here with these laws, right? And then March of 2024, this year alone, which was primaries and like local elections, right, happening, only 22.51% of eligible voters showed up to vote here in Union County. 22.51%. And then if you want to talk about neighborhood county, Mecklenburg, it was only 18.77%. So we need to really get the vote out. And I think one of the biggest problems is there's so many elections happening recently, especially because of like all the North Carolina laws that changed, but like it's super important that we get the vote out. And so why I'm going to go ahead and turn over. So the ACLU is currently watching about 484 anti-LGBTQ bills this year already, right? Last year was in the 500s that they were watching. Some of these bills thankfully didn't make law. I don't remember the exact number, but I think I read somewhere it was like only about 5% of bills actually made it into, like, actually became law, right? And I'm going to leave you with this, is that the opposing side, the people that are trying to take away our rights, are actually spending billions of dollars on a message that we don't belong, right? But think about it. Why are they spending billions of dollars? And it's because they know how much power we actually have. If we didn't have any power at all, if our demographics didn't have any power at all, they wouldn't have a reason to spend any money at all. They're spending the money because they know that if we actually show up and vote, this country would have a different set of laws. And so with that, I'll pass it on to you two to talk a little bit about those laws, and I'll.
You want me to do an overview of what happened last
Yeah, but can I say one
year?
thing? Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm almost positive I'm right, that if one more person in Monroe had voted in the mayor's race, one person,
Yes.
one person, it would not have been decided by the flip of a coin.
Mm.
One
Yep.
person, every single vote counts. Every single vote counts. And the other thing I said I was gonna say one, I'm sorry. And that is, it's a long ballot. And learn about the races. What I do before every election is I go ahead and print out my sample ballot. And then I look at it, and then the things that I don't know about, I research, or frankly, sometimes I'm pretty lazy and I call Katie, or I look and see, you know, who organizations that I believe in, who they're supporting, and things like that. And so then, and I go ahead and mark up my little sample ballot and I carry it into the voting booth with me. And that's what I do. And because I got tired of getting down the ballot and seeing things on there that I had never heard anything about. And I take my vote very seriously. I do not miss an election. I am a registered independent and I use my vote to vote in whatever primary I'm trying to skew. And so, and as an aside, I almost always early vote. I almost always early vote in the exact same location. And I don't want to leave my dog, just bad separation anxiety. So she's in a backpack. And so, and they have no idea who I am, but they know, but they recognize my dog.
But just to make clear, the dog does not vote, okay? We read this.
I'm going to talk a little bit about what happened last year and what the new laws are in North Carolina. And just going off of what both of you just said, you know, all the statistics and surveys show that the future is black, the future is brown, the future is clear, and the future scares the hell out of the opposition. I'm a C4 employee, so that I can talk about this stuff if anybody wants to. But yeah, I mean, that's the fear. That's where the fear is coming from. So, but to do an overview of what happened last year. So we had 13, I believe it was 13 anti-LGBTQ bills introduced in our long session last year. 3 of those passed, were vetoed by our governor, and then overridden. And so I'll go through each of them just briefly. The first one is, I'm still calling it by its bill numbers, HB 808 or Session Law 111 for 2023. And this is the anti-trans healthcare bill. So what it does is it prohibits any minors from initiating any gender affirming care. That includes blockers, hormones, any kind of surgeries, anything like that. There also no state funds can go towards any gender affirming care for anyone. So that impacts Medicaid recipients heavily. And then, as you can imagine, UNC hospitals and those kind of things are, have had to scramble to figure out how to make everything work. There is a legacy clause in there that youth who are receiving care before August 1st of 2023 could continue a course of treatment. That is not defined in the law.
On
And-
purpose.
Exactly. These are purposely vague. You'll see that really big in the Parents' Bill of Rights one. But so what we've seen across the state is some places are interpreting that very broadly and to our benefit. So some places tried to get as many kids in as possible because the override didn't happen until the 16th. And so they're trying to get kids in. Let's come in, have an audiology appointment. We can't get everybody into the gender clinic, but let's get you in somewhere so we can start a course of treatment. And then other clinics are more risk averse. And so they are interpreting it as you are on a hormone blocker and that's all we can do. We will never be able to advance to hormone therapy if that's something you're interested in, because that is not the course of care that you're on. So it's all over the map, as you can imagine. And then it doesn't prevent any gender affirming care for folks 18 and older, as we have seen in other states. It doesn't prohibit the state employees' health plan from covering gender affirming care, because there's current litigation going on, and that was just reheard in September. We're still waiting on a decision for that. So right now, the state employees' health plan does have to cover, which is good because my kid is on the state employees' health plan. And it doesn't prohibit minors from receiving care outside of North Carolina. We have seen that also in other states where they've tried to prohibit people from crossing state lines, similar to abortion care, to receive care. And it doesn't impact mental health care whatsoever right now. So, and then just an update on where we are. There was a lawsuit filed on October 11th, Vogue versus Mansfield. There's a lot of organizational plaintiffs, and there's a provider, one doctor, and then there's one trans minor that's also part of that. And where we stand in that, the last update I got is they finished all the depositions. They filed for the preliminary injunction, and they're just waiting. So if we can get the preliminary injunction, we might be able to kick care back in until a decision is made, but there's no word on when that'll happen.
Is that in state court?
That is in the middle district. Yep.
Good.
See, and as soon as we know, of course, we will let folks know. In the meantime, your best resource is Campaign for Southern Equality STIAP program. So if you're not familiar with that, grab me afterwards. But they're providing lots of things, but primarily grants to help folks get across state lines to access care. They're also helping people find providers in other states, and we're seeing all kinds of stuff like pharmacies who all of a sudden won't fill your prescription even though you met the legacy clause. So they're helping to navigate a lot of these issues. Yes.
Yeah, I was just wondering with the I know about the program you were just mentioning, but with the across state line stuff, is there if you have a sense of, sort of in our neighboring states, because I'm thinking about the way that Virginia's governor is just what are the neighboring states where folks are able to go access more care than they are able to here right now?
Well, when all this started, you could go to Virginia, you could
Right.
go to South Carolina. You can't go to South Carolina anymore. You can still go to Virginia. You can go to Maryland. That's actually a sanctuary state. But yeah, those are probably the closest. And there's also, and I'm not going to be able to remember the name of it, but there's a nonprofit that provides airfare. Like they have a
Yeah.
plane, and they'll fly you places too for free for care.
Georgia's still in the mix, isn't it?
I don't know right off the top of my head. I know Alabama's not good. Georgia, all of these states too, including us, all have litigation.
Right.
And I know it's either Georgia or Alabama keeps swapping, like every decision
Yeah.
does the opposite of the last decision. And so I have a little bit of whiplash and I don't know where places stand. I just know Alabama's not good because I have family there and we won't go visit them.
Elevated Access.
Elevated
is
Access,
A
yeah.
volunteer pilot-led organization to get people that need medical access out of, to the states. Right?
And they help trans and non-binary people and people seeking abortion access.
And it's all volunteer.
It is. The next bill I'm going to talk about is SB 49. That's the Parents' Bill of Rights, or the Don't Say Gay and Trans bill. So that one has caused the most trouble in the state so far. There's, and I'm kind of, sorry, there's not current litigation on that, but there's going to be. So, and the ACLU of North Carolina will be the ones that bring that. So Lambda Legal was the national organization that is doing the healthcare one. And then they have local firms that are helping. So this one prevents any kind of any education on sexual orientation, gender identity in grades K through 4. So I keep teasing like 5th grade's gonna be the queerest year ever. We should all over like rainbows, party supplies, 5th grade teachers. And this one is like so vague. We've seen this all across the country, intentionally vague. So teachers aren't sure, like, can I put a picture of my spouse on my desk? Can I, like, what does this mean? And right off the bat, we saw anti-LGBTQ teachers immediately try to enforce this in their class, even if their school hadn't done anything yet. And what, this is typical. They tried to have it all be in place by September 15th, and they passed it in August. Does anybody move that fast in the school system? No. And you have to have, like, policies have to go through a procedure. Like most school districts, you have to have multiple readings of a policy at a school board meeting. And so like the Department of Public Instruction said, there's no way. There is no way we can do it. So then they said, okay, we'll tie it to the budget. And so now you have to have everything in place by January 1. That's one reason why the litigation hasn't started yet, because we had to wait till after them for there technically to be harm done, even though there's plenty of harm already happened. And this also, the biggest and most harmful piece of this is it's a mandatory reporting to parents of any student who requests to use a different name or pronouns at school. Even if they have parental permission, teachers were calling parents. Yeah, it's a mess. It also made all the surveys opt-in only. And so this was, like, again, very vague. So people are like, okay, so does this mean we can't do our hearing tests? Can we not have the dentist come and check teeth? There's a mental health survey that is vital to our students' mental health well-being. All of these are now opt-in. And so, like, there's a big scramble to, like, and also you can't provide any health care. So then the school's like, what if there's an emergency, like a life or death emergency kit? We can't provide like CPR or anything without parental consent. And so like the General Assembly's like, oh, we
didn't think about that.
Yeah. And so like they've been scrambling, like make amendments and changes to it.
I'm sorry, Katie.
Yeah, go ahead.
Could I add real quick? In Union County, they have put in a policy to take out all flags and signage. So that's their workaround. Yep. But now they read the policy about the no sex ed until after 4th grade. We have a board member who has requested it to go all the way to 12th grade.
Yeah.
And that's currently running in our school board now.
Yeah. And that could come up next year too, in 2025. It also allows parents to see all the records of your child's, what they check out at the library and stuff. So there's been workarounds for bad, but there's also been workarounds for good. So like there was one school who they're like, we're gonna get rid of our library sign out sheet then. Check out whatever you want. We'll lose some books, but we're not tracking it. There's nothing to show anybody. So like, or we're going to use everybody's last name now. So then no student has to, and then other education professionals were like, that actually helps foster kids too, or that helps, so, there's a lot of good folks trying to do this to, work around it too. It does not prohibit students from asking questions about sexual orientation or gender identity. Teachers are allowed to answer those. It doesn't prohibit GSAs or anything like that from happening. And right now it doesn't prohibit that instruction happening from 5th through 12th grade. The legal landscape of that is our partners at Campaign for Southern Equality created a legal memo outlining how this violates Title IX and calling on the Department of Instruction to provide some kind of guidance to schools and encouraging schools not to comply until that guidance came through, because now we're gonna violate a federal policy to comply with a state policy, and that could put our funding at risk. DPI has not acted on that. Campaign for Southern Equality also filed a Title IX complaint and included the sports ban in that too, which I'll talk about. And then, like I said, ACLU of North Carolina is going to take up the actual court. They're looking for plaintiffs right now. And if anybody, you can send people through me. We have a resource hub, and Campaign for Southern Equality has a resource hub with like templates to speak to your school board or a letter to write or something like that. I am anticipating some blowback during this session, just because my school district, Carrboro Chapel Hill City Schools, just flat out came out and said they're not going to comply. And I forget who it was like interviewed publicly and said, we're going to address that in this session. Yeah. Because there's no enforcement mechanism, and it just says that a teacher may be disciplined. It doesn't say by who or what or anything else. So yeah, fun times. Yeah. And then the last one real quick is HB 574, which is the anti-trans sports bill. This one specifically bans trans girls and women from playing sports on girls and women's teams. It doesn't specifically say trans boys, but that's how it's being interpreted. And it applies to all public, private, charter schools, middle school, all the way up through college. It overran the NCAA's inclusive policy, the North Carolina High School Athletic Association's inclusive policy. It ran over all of those. And everybody's designated by biological sex, which is not defined in the bill. And they want everything to be by your sex assigned at birth. They even put that on your physical form, which I refuse to fill that part out. Yeah, it explicitly bans the trans girls. It does not prevent students from playing on Parks and Recs teams, although we have seen that too in counties where counties are trying to ban kids from playing on Parks and Recs teams or any other kind of like club sports team. It does include intramural sports. Like, yeah, I know. So yeah, and it may not be enforceable. There's a court case in the Fourth Circuit. That's our circuit right now in West Virginia. A sweet little girl who runs track. And right now, the last decision's in our favor. That, again, arguments were just heard again in the fall, and we're still waiting to hear from that. And my thing there is, if you get a chance, look up MACK, M-A-C-K, BEGS, B-E-G-G-S. And my solution there is play on the team they're making you play on, and then beat the fuck out of everybody. And that's what Mac Begg said. And I was just on a panel with him, and I was all starry-eyed. Yeah, but those are the 3 laws that are in North Carolina now. And I don't know if Connie wants to talk about some of those scary things that might happen.
Yeah, so there are some other laws that have been proposed and are sitting in committee. Katie's informed me that most of them are not expected to be taken up the short session, but they're still alive and can come back. And some of it is to address and take further, like some of the things like with the lack of an enforcement, or the medical one now includes counseling. You can't even counsel children about anything that could somehow lead to or support any kind of gender affirming medical issues. They cannot do telehealth. And the penalty is losing your license. And things like that. And some of the other ones, this transports bill is there. There's another one, basically letting doctors off the hook if they have a religious reason not to provide treatment. And this is the kind of the expansion of the youth health. And let me see if I can find the language that they're wanting. I mean, they have like, you can get treatment, but you have to do these things. Sorry, I should have had this in front of me. That's not it.
While you're looking for that, I can't remember which state it is. It's one of the bad ones, like Tennessee or something. I'm not bad people there, but just, bad government. Yeah. Where now they're going to require youth to go through conversion there. That's part of their anti-gender affirming care stuff.
Well, it's interesting to just see like some states testing things out, right, and see if it sticks.
Yep.
I mean, a lot of these things started in Florida. They passed it. They started winning some court cases. Obviously now, like they're finally losing some of those battles. But that one state passing something leads to a bunch of other states passing it and making it even worse, right? And so tweaking the legislation to make it worse, or to address the issues that might have been that a court might have addressed in their briefs. So they're becoming really savvy of how to work the language and trying new things out from something that passed somewhere else.
And I don't know if we said before, I mean, these bills are written by think tanks and then just kind of presented on a silver platter. So, it's not a heavy lift for our local people because it's just presented to them. And the one that I'm looking at now is, it allows some medical care, but it puts such a high bar into what has to be done that it's basically not achievable. And the consent that the parent has to sign by the way, they have to sign that this is what's proposed, and it's kind of sitting. Hopefully it won't go anywhere. I don't have the same level of trust that you do, just because I don't trust it. And they have to, so this is a parental consent form that has to be signed 30 days before any treatment and at every single subsequent medical visit. And this is what the parents have to sign. A consent that says, if your child begins one of these treatments, it may actually worsen the discordance and thus increase the likelihood that your child will need additional and more serious interventions to address the worsening condition. And that's just the first sentence. And it goes on another page.
And to speak to the trust, I don't trust them either. And we're working with our partners with the ACLU and Planned Parenthood. And what we're expecting is to see them fighting about medical marijuana, immigration. I'm thinking they're going to bring DEI up because it's been a hot button thing on several communities around the state lately. And what was the other one I said? Medical marijuana, immigration, abortion. They're probably not gonna do, we
Gambling
don't,
was the other
gambling,
one.
yeah, gambling, because they're still arguing about gambling, which we want that. We want them to argue about gambling because they argue with their own party about that, and they argue with like NC Values Coalition, who we don't like. Or I don't like. And so we like them to spend a lot of time on that because they're going to want to end on time because this is an election year. And we also think that's why they're not going to probably go for a lot of the big like woke agenda items like they would in a long session. But I mean, I'm expecting 2025 to be horrible depending on how the election pans out. But that's what we're thinking is that they're going to focus on those things because they're going to want to have good talking points for their election stuff. But you know, I don't put anything past them. They can, the new norm is to gut and switch everything.
In the
Also,
dark at night.
yeah, in the dark of night. Also, the new norm is like for me as a lobbyist, like people on the opposition who would have maybe talked to me in the past and then bring up my issue behind closed doors in a meeting are afraid to talk to me at all because their party is going to have some sort of retribution. I mean, do you all know that like somebody spoke up and so they moved the person's office to the basement without, I mean, that's how petty we have become in the General Assembly. So like they won't even talk to me and like nobody knows what's going to happen until it happens. Unless it's in the Senate, there's like their process is different, so you get a little bit of notice. But in the House, like there's no notice. Like our people, our most trusted allies, our out officials don't even know until they're in there on the floor and they're hearing it for the first time.
Explain gut and switch.
Yeah. So any bills that met crossover, like in our short session, and every state is different too. So in our short session, they can't introduce any new legislation unless it's something that met or it's tied to the budget. But they can gut a bill that met crossover and put in new language, which is like a nasty way of doing government, but that's like what we've been doing. And that's what happened with a lot of things last year too.
And that's what happened with these, say the Smiles Act. Willis, who is this area, House of Representative for District 68. He just cut it was like something on someone's licensing. And then he just listed that, hey, every, school district can decide if you wear a mask or not. And then that got attached to the budget. And it was just out of, it's like, oh, well, it's past the time. And they're like, well, we can just take this and cut it. Yeah.
We once had a budget bill that was called something about the motorcycle act.
Well, and even like issues that don't, as I mentioned earlier, like issues that don't scream out LGBTQ, right? Like immigration, for example, like it has a huge impact on LGBTQ individuals, right? I mean, if an individual, let's say they're trying to do what Texas did, right? Show them your papers bill. Someone like myself isn't carrying their passport, right? Or some proof of citizenship. I get arrested, let's say mistakenly even deported, which actually happens. I end up in, let's say El Salvador because they don't believe me that I'm from Mexico, which also happens. And like I end up in a place where I don't know anyone, I'm unsafe, right? If I don't come off as masculine enough in this community, like there's consequences, right? Like actually life to death consequences. And so we need to like actually make sure that when we're talking about allyship, we're not only asking our heterosexual cisgender individuals to be allies, but that we ourselves are actually being allies within our community as well. And so like these issues affect our community just as much as anything else that actually says LGBTQ. And one other point that I want to bring us back to, so elections, right? So these issues that we've talked about, they're at the center of the Republican Party because it's driving their numbers up, right? So it's driving actual turnout, Republican turnout up. And so they're going to I mean, even the Democratic Party has realized that, like, hey, if we want some people to vote for us, we're going to sacrifice immigration, right? Like, we're going to make it harder on immigrants because that's what people are voting that way, right? And so LGBTQ issues also drive people to the polls. I mean, there's a reason why Mark Robinson continues, and for those of you who don't know, Mark Robinson is running for governor in the state of North Carolina, right? And continues to talk about just in a very negative way about our community, calling us filth, said the pride flag makes him sick every time he sees it. A church that flies that rainbow flag, which is a direct spit on the face of God Almighty, where like our community is also religious, right? So like beyond his bigoted anti-LGBTQ views, he's also a Holocaust denier, an election denier, wants to ban all abortions in North Carolina. And for a lot of people, I mean, abortion is also a queer right? It also affects our community. But called straight couples superior to LGBTQ couples. So if there's anything that's going to drive you out to vote, I hope that's it, right? That there's a governor that could completely change. Like right now, I mean, they were able to pass three bills, and it took a little bit longer to get them passed because of the whole veto process, right? But if they don't have, and I don't, there's no possible way I don't think that the chambers are going to switch parties at this election, but like if we don't have at least some like barrier there, like these bills are going to become law almost immediately, right? And so we need to definitely just make sure that we're doing everything in our power. It's a scary time, like, and the bad thing is like people say, well, just some people say, well, I'll just move to another state, right? Well, but not everyone can actually pick up and move, right? Like we need to talk about the economic impacts on people. Like I'm sure like there's studies that show that cis white gay men like actually have more power and more money, right? Like than straight people do. But like that's not the entire LGBTQ community. Like our trans community unfortunately doesn't have as much economic impact as other communities, right? And so like we need to make sure that we're realizing that no, not everyone can pick up and move, even if it is just to Georgia or even if it is just to Virginia, right? It's a whole process.
And I try to, just remind us like of some positive stuff. Like, we had some wins over the last, before 2016, we had some significant wins. And I think, we're experiencing now nothing that we haven't experienced before as a community. Mm. And we've had to lean on each other before. We've had, think about the times when gender affirming care wasn't even like a word or a thing, people even talked about, and people were still helping community members get the gender affirming care that they needed. And then we're just back to that time. So we have to rely on each other. We have to organize, and we have to try to stay positive. We really need to support our youth in whatever way possible, because it's a very scary time and they don't necessarily have that history to lean on. And just, let them know that we're here. We're not going to let them go through anything alone. And just remember, we stand on the shoulders of giants who have had to do way harder shit than we're having to do, even now in this really scary time.
And I'll say again what I said earlier, which is the clerk of Superior Court is an elected office. And I'll add to it, our judges in North Carolina are also elected. And sometimes they fill out questionnaires, and there's little phrases that they're used that, they're not going to tell you how they're going to vote on a case. I mean, you don't hear it so much anymore, but there was a time if they used the word family values, you knew they weren't looking out for us. So there's words and phrases to look for. And if you don't know, I mean, my contact information is out there. I'm happy to tell you who to vote for. I'm happy to tell you who I asked who to vote for the races that I don't know. So, and it is a challenging time. I've been doing this I've been in practice almost 30 years. I was an activist before I went into practice. I've seen a lot of change. you know, early in my practice, they had, you know, some of you will know what I'm talking about. Some of you won't. So early in my practice, I knew where most of the glory holes were in Charlotte. Because I represented men who had been arrested on solicitation, crime against nature, a statute, by the way, that's still on the books. And I don't do those cases, haven't done one in a million years, and I'm fine with that.
We don't know where the people.
I don't know who the holes are.
I think there's an app for that.
Yeah.
What's it called?
Our Title IX expansions just kind of falls God. It's not ever really kind of around until the election and before we change anything.
Yeah, they kept delaying and delaying and delaying. Hopefully, I mean, did anybody put in a public comment? I hope people did. We don't know. I don't have a timeline on it. I mean, again, though, like Biden and Harris are trying to get elected too, so maybe they'll throw that out there. I mean, they've just launched this huge campaign for the queer community in particular. Like Equality North Carolina has already started pushing it out on our socials. So like maybe they'll push that through to as part of their election stuff. I hope so.
That's what I was thinking, maybe they're.
Yeah, that would help.
Sued in different courts and have financial penalties and all that, so would that actually be more of a game changer at all? It's not really.
I mean, it could, in a lot of ways, it could hurt. It might be more of a psychological win than actually do any like huge movement stuff, but a win's a win right now to me.
And I think there's also like this calculated risk, right? Like that attorneys make is like, how much of an impact is this case going to have, right? Like, if one, is it going to stay local? Is it going to make it to the Supreme Court? And do we really want it to end up at the Supreme Court right now, right? And it's similar to like some of the stuff that we talk about in the name change listserv is like, do we want to like even go and try to make name change just even easier for individuals and ask legislatures to bring this up right now? Probably not, right? Like not in this hostile environment. And so like there's some things that like you're not actually like you're not even fighting completely because you don't want to make it worse. You don't want to take 5 steps back just to try to take a step forward.
There's one of my friends and mentors that does family law and is in part of the queer community too. She's like, you know, with marriage equality came lesbians behaving badly during divorces that then sets up bad case law. And you know, like that's another piece. Like we're trying to advocate kind of like this way about parental rights for queer families, you know, so that it's not like we can't go at it like this because then that'll bring too much attention.
Oh, because we're not straight.
Yeah, that's you had a question.
It's not just numbers, but you were saying something and I'm not sure what it was about, but about telehealth and something not being accessible. Who was that again? That's not for counseling for like gender affirming care.
Right. In other words, you know, currently, you know, people can still talk to their counselor, their therapist, and this one that's just kind of sitting there and hopefully never goes anywhere is now including, you know, not only can doctors not do so, but therapists cannot either.
That's disturbing considering how much even in Union County, we use telehealth for psychiatry and for everything. So if you take that chunk out, especially as you move further out to the rural areas, that's it.
Yeah. And a telehealth thing too, you can do gender affirming care on telehealth, but you have to be in the state where they're licensed. So for people that need gender affirming care for minors, you just have to go to the first gas station across the border in Virginia and you know, hop on your phone and you can receive the care. You don't have to like, there's not like a rule about how far in the state or anything, but right now that's how. And you, yeah, you get a lot. Yeah.
So next time you'll be right.
Can't be any.
Wrap
Wrap
it up.
up, we wrap it up. Actually, sign now. Any other last minute questions?
Quick one with, HB 808, you said that, it doesn't prohibit schools from having GSAs. But do GSAs have to have like a faculty sponsor and are like, is that how they're like, then you can't have a GSA because you don't have a teacher to sponsor it? Is that sort of like
No, you
a
can,
functional?
yeah, no, you can do it. And what I have seen, like creative compliance is like where a teacher had a GSA and they didn't want any students to tell them a different name or pronoun than what they used at school and then be forced to report them. So they changed it to like calling it a different kind of thing. It's open to anybody. And I forget what it was, like how they refer to everybody is they all have like a nickname or something like that, or they, you know, something they came up with a really creative way of making it so it's not like they can't be targeted for being only queer kids.
Right, okay.
Even though it's only queer, you know, like, you know what I mean? But no, they can still have a GSA. It's that outing component. Which also violates, you know, like attorneys, we have an ethical thing that we have to abide by. So do social workers and school counselors. And so there is a workaround if a counselor feels like the student will be in harm, then they don't have to notify. But a lot of counselors are saying, well, it goes against the ethical thing that I have to maintain my licensure. And so, you know, again, no help.
Our contact infos are on the web, search us, we are here for you.
Thank you, everyone.
Before we wrap up. I have one thing I'd like to say unrelated to anything. So it is related to when we were talking about name changes earlier. And that is, for the criminal background checks that people have to get, they have to get fingerprinted. And I said, people can use private agencies, they can go to the police department or something like that. The thing that I've learned recently is anybody can do fingerprinting. There's no licensure, there's no class, there's no certification, which is what I've thought for 30 years. So,
Amazon Kid,
you can go on Amazon or wherever else, buy the fingerprint card, watch a YouTube video, buy the little ink pad, learn how to roll fingerprints and do fingerprints. And if there's anybody that is interested in doing that, you're never going to get rich at it. But it is a way to make life much easier for somebody who either doesn't have the money or doesn't want to go to the police department or the sheriff's department. Contact me and I can send you a link on something to do. It takes 5 minutes. And like I said, it's a YouTube video. I would love to get people trained up to do this.
Be on the lookout in the content for a student celebrate. It won't go anywhere, but it'll be nice messaging from all of us. So be on the lookout for a student celebrate. And it's coming.
I actually have 3 bills that if I do get in, and I'm only 7,510 votes away. So it's not like I'm not close. So if you can get 3 people, get 3 people, to get 3 people, we're doing Amway. And but it's 2 of them are for special education, the due process, and he was going to pay for expert witnesses. The other one is by consent laws that we need to have explicit prior permission. That will also include, different things that you would do in your bedroom. And, so, things like that. So, but I will want to say that let's get 5-minute break, but before that, let's do 5-minute break and then come back. Where would you like to stand or sit? It's up to you. Yeah, okay. Y'all are gonna be.
So we're actually. I think that actually.
Yeah, they'll have this thing in the morning. Okay.
Thank you. Oh, we went. I think she's. She came up with the idea. It's like, you know, that water. I think I'm. Thank you. We also like and whenever I get seated, we can start going. Let's see if you'll stand right here and see if we're gonna things on the
Okay. I might be behind it so I can set this down. Thanks. After I'm done like this part of it, once like, you know, I start with the slides and everything, then I will go through and I'll be like moving around and talking like a bit more. Just for like the story part of it.
Hello, hello.
Can we
Good to see you.
get her focused? See if we get focused. What in the world's going on?
There it is.
Okay. And you can move this around if you're
Okay.
like, oh, I want to sit as.
Okay. Set this.
Yeah, two more speakers today. Before we start with, Lily, I will, talk to you about what's going on in the Union County School, just a little snippet. Because we were thinking about that with all the stuff that they were doing. Is that, we have lost GSAs. Since, we started Union County Pride, because teachers will leave and no one will want to, become a sponsor. And so we also have where, they have to change their name from USA to Prism. And then none of them will respond, even when they know that they have, students that talk to me. For my capitalistic life, I'm an attorney. And, then I have my heartfelt life, but that they will, say, hey, this person's helping with this issue, talk to them, and they will not even do it on their off time through, get to it through all sorts of different things if you can't, like Signal or something, like I can do it. Just snap in. Morse code or whatever, I don't care, just contact me. And with that, we also have where I thought, well, maybe they'll just put something on the web, and especially if money is attached. And when we started Union County Pride, one of the things is youth and teens, and so we have a form that they can fill out for grant money. And then also students who want to do, we've raised money now that we can get to that next level of doing scholarships for students. So that's on our website under youth, and it's unioncountypride.org/youth. Because we would like to help the GSAs, our prisms, or whatever name that they have to do, like drama club. I mean, I don't care. It's
Price's Book Club.
So let me see. I got lost my page. Goals information. I was looking at Romer v. Evans, because that is a, if you want to, and it's a trigger warning thing though, but it's a 1996 case of, where if you read the descent of Scalia, a lot of the things that are going on right now with the word usage and stuff like that came from Scalia's mind, and Scalia is the Supreme Court justice. So this is not a new thing. It's just that it took all the different think tanks and stuff like that to wrap his stuff into what they're doing right now. And if you think that anyone's saying, oh, what they're doing with Project 2025, what they're doing with Trump's word usage a lot of times is, they're making up all the comparisons to Nazi Germany. If you read the 1996 dissent for Scalia, and Thomas is still on the Supreme Court, Scalia died, but Thomas is still there, and most of the people on the conservative side were educated after Scalia became a Supreme Court justice. So they were educated with him in mind of their thought process. And the first sentence is that we are in a culture cop, just like Mein Kampf. And he didn't write that without saying
hey, I think that he actually stated that the gay community was a powerful minority. And with Candelaria saying that there's a reason why they're targeting the queer community is because we are a powerful minority. And even in 96, that's what he was saying, is they don't need any special treatment because they're already powerful. They've got the Hollywood and and, and things like that. And that was a lot of statements from when Nazi Germany with the queer community there and the Jewish community. It was like they just took the same propaganda and stuck it in there. So,
Let's start. Can we get the stuff there, the slides?
oh, yes.
Thank you.
I forgot. That was just a blank idea of my brain. Oops. And you can move this around to fit your.
Thank you.
Lily is a 16-year-old advocate. She has spoken at many events, including multiple Board of Education meetings and last year's Intersectional Dynamic Pride Conference. She is the recipient of the Union County Pride Youth Leadership Award. In her spare time, which must not be a lot, we like to listen to and play music, read, do art, and bake. When Lily is older, she wants to become a baker or child life specialist. She is currently a student in Union County Public Schools, and her favorite core subjects are English and history. And to do this, it's just punch. That's all.
My Voice Matters. This is going to be a presentation including some images and descriptions of links that I found extremely helpful in my journey to finding my voice. I've faced a lot of backlash in minimizing through public schools. So, school, fight, exclusion, survive, advocate, and discriminate. If you asked me 5 years ago, those words would have never gone into the same sentence. Now, that's a sentence I use almost daily to describe my school experience. I have to fight and advocate for myself to survive at school to avoid being excluded and discriminated. Again, let me give you a little bit of background knowledge. My name is Lily Auslander and I am 16. I have grown up with numerous chronic health conditions which have made certain aspects of my life challenging, though I never imagined one of those aspects would be school. School is supposed to be a safe place to learn and grow, but it's been the opposite for me for most of my life. I've struggled, failed, and fought throughout these last 6 years. In school, I have realized how much I actually have to fight for myself. For the longest time, I never knew how, nor did I feel comfortable. But finding the right group of people and the right support system helped me find my voice. I went through relentless bullying, unwilling and closed-minded teachers and staff, a broken system, and dealt with judgmental and unqualified adults. I would, and still do, get constant negative feedback about pretty much every aspect of my life. It would make school absolute torture for me. When I was at school, I would try to lay low. Martin Luther King Jr. said, "Our lives begin to end the day we become silent about the things that matter." And that is very true. I let people walk all over me, hurt me, harass me, and make decisions they knew nothing about. I was getting sick and tired of it, so when the school had not met my education needs by denying my IEP in 8th grade, I finally decided I had enough and went to my guidance counselor. This was the first big step for me in my journey to finding my own voice. This wasn't the first time I had spoken up or advocated for myself, but it was the first time that I'd done it confidently. My parents always encouraged me to advocate for myself, and I would, everywhere but school. Now, you might be wondering what made the difference. The difference was the person I was with and the trust I had in him. He had a quote on his wall that said, "A little consideration, a little thought for others can make all of the difference." And I never truly understood the meaning behind this quote until now. He took all of my issues to heart and would meet with me weekly to teach me how to advocate and talk about these things. He made me believe in myself. I'll never forget this quote because it was one of his favorites, and he used to say it to me after every meeting. Once we believe in ourselves, we can risk curiosity, wonder, spontaneous delight, or any experience that reveals the human spirit. E. Cummings. By the end of that year, I had spoken up for myself more than I think I ever had before. I was going to my 504 meetings, filing incident reports, and even spoke in front of the school board for the first time. That was until I made it to high school. High school is an entirely different game. New teachers, way more kids, much bigger buildings, and bigger problems. High school brought the challenge of figuring out how to speak up. In middle school, I had my counselor. However, in high school, I was on my own. Yes, I have a guidance counselor, I have a special education teacher, and eventually I started trusting some of the adults. That was eventually, almost 2 full years later. You also have to take into account that I am one student in a school of a couple thousand. My first semester was rough. I had teachers who didn't believe me when asking for help or would invalidate me or threaten me with disciplinary actions, and there are admin and staff who were so overworked that I was at the bottom of their priority list. That first semester was really eye-opening to me. I realized finally how much work this is going to take for me to get the same treatment as my peers, let alone treatment that will help me succeed at the same level they are. So I started documenting things that would happen to me, things people would say to me, physical acts towards me and my service animal, and threats from teachers and staff. Documenting these things and keeping the facts was my next step to finding my voice. By the end of that year, I became comfortable with a few teachers and was able to start trusting them to help me. While finding my new trusted adults was my third step on this journey, there was still a lot of pressure on me. I was told that I was a burden and that my issues were not anything they could solve. And after so many times, I believed them. I started keeping things to myself, not wanting to burden others with my woes. I felt like I was a sinking ship trying to survive. I was constantly in fight or flight mode, waiting for the other shoe to drop. This caused me to put up some of my own walls. My fourth step was breaking down the barriers that I had set up for myself. I had to relearn how to trust people. I had to stop keeping things to myself, and I had to learn how to not take negative comments to heart. Like Eleanor Roosevelt had said, no one can make you feel inferior without your consent, and I was giving them consent. It's one of my favorite quotes, but I wouldn't listen to it. I would let the little things get to me instead of blocking them out, and it became really detrimental. I had to remember, and still do constantly remind myself, that school is supposed to be a safe space, and that I am safe. Though I might not feel it in the moment, I have to remember that I will be fine. The fifth step for me was getting to know my voice again. After staying silent for most of that year, I decided to take care of myself over the summer. I reflected on what the year had done to me and my mental health and decided that this school year would be different. I decided I was going to be more open with myself and others and learn not to care about what others think of me. I decided that I would try to make this school year less about surviving and more about thriving. And that's what I was hoping this year was going to be like. It's been a struggle, but it has worked out. I started communicating with teachers proactively for my needs. I kept documentation of everything that would happen that was negatively affecting me and took it to my teacher and trusted adults. They would help me find ways around it. I started speaking up and speaking out more because yes, those are two different things. Speaking up is about giving voice to thoughts, concerns, ideas, wants, or issues, while speaking out is about giving voice to injustices or viewpoints. Not only fighting for myself, I then realized that there are others in my school and around the county that cannot fight for themselves. I have used that as my motivation. Now, I'm not gonna glorify it. Learning to trust again is probably one of the hardest things I've had to do this year. It has become easier as I've been working on it more and finding teachers who not only believe me, but do care for me. I started realizing how big of an impact friends can have and how big of an impact my community has. I also learned the importance of finding my outlet. Which brings me to my next step. My sixth step was finding my outlet. And I'm not talking about motivation, I'm talking about your escape, your happy place. For me, that's anything where I can be creative. I thrive on creativity. For me, my outlet became music and art. I really dove deep into that and started finding ways to express myself more. My outlet gave people a new way to understand me because it gave me a new way to express my problems and my issues. The seventh step was finding my confidence, whether it came from self-success, encouragement from those who are close to me, or fulfillment of personal goals and more. Confidence was the next big step that I had to take. Believe it or not, I used to have a fear of public speaking. I used to wonder, what if I stutter? What if I miss a part? What if I'm unclear? Or what if people judge me for my disabilities? But then I found my confidence and learned to drown other voices out instead of silencing my own. Since finding my confidence, I've spoken at 4 Board of Education meetings, I've spoken at rallies and protests, and I even spoke on Capitol Hill about the importance of mental health services in public schools. I now attend all of my IEP meetings and sit down one-on-one with teachers, admin, principals, and other adults in power to discuss my issues or those that I see in my community. I speak up in class when having an issue, and I speak out on behalf of friends and fellow peers who cannot for themselves. I have learned to use my voice, and that my voice does have power. This is the guideline that my counselor and I wrote out my 8th grade year to help me find my voice. After following these steps and adding some of my own processes, I am now here speaking in front of you. First, understand what your voice is. Then know the threats to your voice. Reflect on your beliefs about your voice. Get to know your voice again. Build confidence in your voice. What can we do about this though? How can you help? Well, I'll tell you the things that I wish I had when finding my voice. Whether you work with young children or teens, or no kids at all, people need to be heard. We need to feel like we're being seen, even if that's just letting us eat lunch with you. Simply reaching out. We need to feel seen. We need to see books with representation of all kind. We need to have those subtle little things that show that you are a safe person. Showing that you are a safe person will let us let down our guards. They might not seem important to you, but they are very important to those who are looking for them. And this has been my journey so far. If you don't take anything else away from this, I do hope you remember that everything is so far and that there is no ending point. As humans, we are constantly changing and evolving. No one's journey is going to be the same, and you are never done growing. There's no clear start and stop, no clear checkpoints, and everyone's steps will be different, but this is what's worked for me so far. This is how I found and still am finding my voice and power. I'm going to talk a bit more about some resources, and I'm going to talk a bit more about some resources, and then when I'm done, I'll open the floor to questions. So please turn your attention to the screen. I put that up here. So, okay. So I'm going to show some examples of different kinds of, remove that. Cool. I'm going to show some examples of different types of documentation, different books of representation of all different kinds, and then examples of contact cards and other resources that can help. So, start with documentation. Things that I found helpful are writing everything down, no matter how big, how small. Keep notebooks or folders. This I found very helpful because I lose things very easily. I would get my sheets mixed up with different homework assignments and different projects. And so I found having notebooks and folders that have a different design than everything else has been really helpful. Take pictures or videos in the moment. I would have schools turn around and say, well, we don't have it on film, therefore it never happened, and nothing would get done about it, nothing would get addressed. So I would constantly keep my phone on me, whether teacher said leave it in the classroom or not, to take pictures and videos of everything in the moment. Stay with someone whenever you can. This was always great because even if they didn't like my pictures or videos, I had a second witness that was there with me constantly. And then report it the same day it happens, the moment it happens. Teacher would say something, I'd get up and walk to guidance and fill out an incident report. As those accumulate, it'll bring more attention to you and to your issues, so they will then be more engaging and trying to find a way to fix them. And these are some books. This one shows a teen that was then physically disabled in her early teens before she started high school and how she's figured out a way to navigate through. This is great for teens and adults. It is a much more engaging story. It's not a fictional. This is her life experiences of everything that she's gone through, and it's put through memoirs. I Can Say No, Help Kids Protect Boundaries and Build Confidence. This is a picture book about protecting boundaries and building confidence and self-esteem. In I Can Say No, Jenny Simmons teaches children the power of the word no. Whether it's saying no to bullying or someone invading their personal space, or simply to playing with a friend when they need some alone time, this book teaches children that they can use their voice to stand up for themselves and what is good in the world and good for themselves. This is a picture book. It is geared more towards younger children, but I mean, my now 10th grade guidance counselor has this in her office. Like, it's a good book to have. Different, a great thing to be. So this is a New York Times bestseller. It's a rhyming book and encourages children to value the different in all people, leading the way to a kinder world in which differences in all of us are celebrated and embraced. This teaches kids how to talk about the new topics. You know, every kid in this is a book about kids, so every kid in this book has some form of disability or thing that make them unique, and it teaches kids then how to approach these topics and how to talk about them more openly with adults and fellow peers. More than words, so many ways to say what we mean. In the tradition of all are welcome and the day you begin comes a touching picture book about the many unique ways we communicate and how we can better listen to and respect those different modes of expression. This tender, stunningly illustrated picture book explores and celebrates the many forms of expression, signing, speaking, singing, smiling, among others, and culminates in a heart-rending story about connection and understanding. It includes additional material at the end of the book with vocabulary and an introduction to forms of communication and information about communication access. It's great for back to school and early classroom discussions. Standing Up for Myself, an empowering book for neurodivergent kids and teens about boundaries, sensitivity, personal space, consent, power play, and self-advocacy. This book is written by a neurodivergent author, meant for neurodivergent teens, and has been one of my favorite resources I have. So this book is the first book to be recommended by Therapist Neurodiversity Collective to be used as a perfect alternative to social skills training. Autistic kids and teens need neurodiversity affirming resources, and this book provides a space for them to explore the skills that they need to navigate their social world. This is great because a lot of times neurodivergent autistic teens are taught that they need to socialize the same way every other child does, but our brains don't function that way. So this gives us an outlet to figure out how to express ourselves in the way that works for us. So these are some examples of contact cards. I know I didn't really touch on them in the speech, but they are great to have. They're just a more discreet way to say, hey, I'm having an issue. I need to speak with you. All of my guidance counselors I've had throughout the past like 5 or 6 years have used these. But I also have some teachers that have them in their rooms. And so you just print them out, you cut them up. They can be as obvious or as discreet as you want. And then you put kind of a non-discriminate looking box or can, tub, anything next to it. The kids will fill them out and drop them in. And then at the end of the day, you can just check it, see what's going on, who needs what, and it's just a more anonymous way of reporting what's going on. So this one, a lot of these are more geared towards little kids. But this one kind of like simplifies how to choose your problems, the size of your problems, by putting it in comparison to rocks. So you put in your name, the date, and who your teacher is, and this then it has a different way of saying what you need. So if you choose a small rock, if you're having issues that you feel are minor, medium rocks if the issue isn't major, but you'd really like to get it resolved, friendship concerns, family concerns, teachers, etc. And a large rock. You choose this if it is urgent. This includes a death in the family, including pets, major family changes, divorce, separation, bullying, and sad feelings or depression. You just have the person check off what size rock they're having, what size of rock compares to their issue, and then you put in the date that you see them and when it was collected. So This one, again, a little more obvious and it's a little less in detail, but it's just your name, your date, and the time you're going to see them. You can also change this one to fit the dates that would work for the student and times that work for the student. And then they can then go in and pick which ones line up with their schedule. Because some kids can't get pulled out of classes. You know, if they're having an issue with the teacher and you're in the class with that teacher and your guidance counselor comes in to get you, it's really awkward and it can create some pretty negative spaces. So this way you can put, oh, you know, I can be seen during my first class of the day because I'm fine with that teacher. It's not with that teacher. So the teacher then doesn't turn it back on you. So this is, again, a little more colorful and bright, but this goes more into detail. So it's your name, your reason, and then if it's an emergency, then explain what's going on and then what teacher you're going to be with when you can be seen, because then they'll go look you up, find your teacher, and then come get you at an appropriate time throughout the day. So these are some resources that I have found that have worked great. It's also some more information on the discrimination and the advocacy work that is and needs to be done in public schools for teens and kids. So all of these are going to be linked. So Connected Classroom, Center for Independent Futures, Human Rights Campaign, and then Disability Rights NC are all great resources to then go through and find materials on how to explain this stuff, whether you need to explain it to an employer, a teacher, whoever. Great ways to explain what's going on and how to start those conversations. And then this next page are some articles and statistics. Like North Carolina leads the nation in suspending students with disabilities purely because of their disability, not because of a behavioral issue, because of the disability. A lot of people, when I bring this up, would assume that it's Texas because it's the biggest state, but it's actually North Carolina. Texas is surprisingly further down the list. So the second link is filled with statistics that show disabled children versus able-bodied kids and kind of the discriminatory levels and the levels to care that they can get at a decent level of care. And then the rest of these are all links. Some of them have curriculum on how to explain it to younger kids, older kids, but I highly recommend checking these out if you can. That's the end. So does anybody have any questions to go off of this? Are we good? Hi.
I was wondering, high school, they do like assemblies where they kind of, give information on different topics to help educate people. But I would imagine there's some education about different, inclusion topics that is part of the health curriculum or whatever. But I mean, is there assembly like bring awareness about different things and not just the students, but to remind the teachers and staff as well?
Very rarely actually. We do an assembly in the beginning of the year for school rules, safety, and we do one on how to treat others with kindness. That's pretty much the only one where they, talk about the differences you're gonna see in school. Like I come to school, I have a cycling, rotation, and mobility aids that come with me, and I have a service animal. They send a letter home but only to the kids that are in my classes about my service animal. So there isn't much discussion or communication between staff and admin to students about any differences you're going to see. Even in health class, there's not really that much that we learn about that isn't, your straightforward same thing you've learned for the past 4 years. So they don't really do much. If it's becoming an increasing issue, they might do one, but a lot of the times we'll do one in the beginning of the year for rules, school rules, handbook, going over that. We'll do one for online safety, and that's the Choose Kindness assembly. And then we'll have ones throughout the year if something comes up, but usually we do one for bullying prevention, and then we'll do ones, ACT, SAT, but even then those are geared more towards a typical kid, so anybody else doesn't get the resources they need. You want us?
So, hi Lily, it's Jen.
Hi.
How are you? I'm
I'm
so
good, how are you?
proud of you. I'm so proud of you. I just want to take a moment, and if anybody knows Lily directly or her family, she's just an amazing human. So I'll start there. So if I'm hearing correctly, it seems that the school district overall is dropping the ball on IEPs and 504s.
Yeah, pretty
Which is
much.
fair. My kid has a 504 and we have the same problem. I thought your resources and the things that you said about documenting is super important, particularly for our LGBTQ kids and our kids with disabilities, because you seem like you're a thorn in their side, but I'll tell you, Nick was getting bullied all the time, still currently is. But once he started videoing the other kids, they backed off a little bit because they know that there's proof. And the cameras in school, same thing. Like Nick is always saying this happened at this time, check the cameras. But kids are smart, you know. I love your journaling idea and just documenting. So I thought that was really great advice. And I hope more kids take that to heart, because the more you hold staff accountable, the more your safety and your well-being will be protected. So great job. Really,
Thank
really
you.
proud of you.
Thank you. Yeah, that's another big thing is even if you didn't happen to catch it in the moment, ask the kid their name. They're gonna back down immediately because they know you're gonna go to somebody else. And quite frankly, kids are stupid. I'm just gonna put it out there. A lot of times they do things right next to the assistant principal's office or right in front of cameras, so it's really easy. It's really easy. Get their name, check the time, go to somebody in power. That's the quickest way to get it done. If you can't pull out your phone in time, if it's like one Snyder mark that you didn't see coming, you check the time, get the kid's name, go. That's the quickest way and easiest way to get it done. And you also, I have found that I face the least amount of backlash with that.
What is you know, sad, and then we need to just say that sometimes people don't think they can see. Her voice being able to communicate and we have students that are not able to, you know, they may be able to voice their words. He actually has counties and it's even you. They actually have a clock in one of their rooms. And it's like a black box that they put kids in who are behavioral issues in their room.
It's,
Yeah.
they tried to,
It's kind of a picture of it. Yeah, it's a box.
yeah, it's the,
It just has a door
essentially.
and a little window, and it's black in their room, and it's 8 foot tall, 8 foot wide, and it's like a square box.
Yep.
And they will put elementary students in that. And I don't know how in the world, if that happened to my child, I would be like, oh, that happened. You will not, you won't be around. Yeah, I don't know how that would, but that county is so rural, and that most of the students who are in special ed go to one building, one school building. And they just send them over there and they're out of sight, out of mind. And then the parents are like, hey, I want to keep them in my home campus. And they're like, oh, well, then we will have this whole issue of
And she does this.
Yeah, Sienna has one. It's
Yeah.
a one in Kansas, and it's located in Charlotte Mecklenburg Academy, which only serves students with special education needs who have higher behavioral needs, so it
Mhm.
only be utilized for this.
They did that in my elementary school. It wasn't a box, but the teacher had 2 desks in the corner. And if anyone was getting loud or disruptive based off of whatever, we we had to go sit behind these desks and couldn't talk to anyone, couldn't see anyone. She called it the quiet island. That's what she would call it to kind of give it a happy, fun name, but it really wasn't. Anytime anything would happen, I would have too many tics in a day, too many verbal tics. I had to go sit in the corner all day. And it happened quite often to numerous kids, and it is a really horrible thing that they do, but unfortunately it is a vast reality.
Yeah, I actually have a question for you.
Yeah, what's up?
So we have just started, we just had the very first IEP meeting where we sat in for a good 10 minutes. So,
Hey,
kiddo.
progress.
Progress. But how have you been able to navigate a space where parents have trouble navigating?
Yeah.
Because it's very holistic.
Mhm.
They talk about you as if you aren't there.
Yep, constantly.
My son left, like, as we were talking, as one of the teachers were like, I don't know if we can do this. I'm like, and I don't know if I tell him to stay or get the hell out of here while mom,
Mhm.
reads them across the coals, but,
I mean, fair.
so how have you been able to, navigate that space? Do you stay for the entire meeting?
As-
Do you
yeah.
put up boundaries?
So as of this year, my last IP meeting, which was about a month ago, was the first meeting that I had stayed full time. And for me, what I had figured out is I make sure I have at least one quote safe teacher on that call and talk to, your kid's admin, or if they have, a special education teacher or case manager, speak to them about it, because usually they can find a teacher that's on a planning period and request that teacher to be the one that sits in on the meeting. So for me, it was my English teacher. She sat on the meeting and she's my safe teacher in the school right now. So I had her with me. I also, if you can, some teachers just can't do this, but if you can, I always say I'd rather have it in a bigger room, whether it's an empty classroom, a conference room in the library, or, a teacher, like the teacher that I'm with, if I go to their classroom, because then if I need to, I can get up and walk to the other side of the room and put on headphones and take a break. Fidgets are a great tool for this as well. Yeah, fidgets, and then write down what you want to say. Like if something comes up and it sparks your idea, write down what you think you want to say in that moment, because I mean the meetings are very fast paced. They go very quickly. That way, if you can then say what you're gonna say, and you don't have the overwhelming feeling of, oh, I can't forget this detail. I need to get this detail in there. Write it down, because then you don't have to try and remember it. You can then go back to tentatively listening, and then you just write down again. And if someone would speak over me, I would let the teacher know, like, that I was with, like, hey, I need to say this, and she would kind of speak up a little bit more to get them to quiet down so I could then be heard. And then also if I'd say talk to the admin on this, but are your IEP meetings held over Microsoft Teams, or are they in person? Okay.
Because sometimes our providers, visit multiple schools.
Mhm.
Sometimes I'm in person with the teacher and my son, but the rest of the providers are all on a computer.
Yeah, that's how mine was this year. Request that he get Teams on his computer, because that way they will see his face alone, not next to somebody else. They'll see his face, his name, so it'll be more like he is present in the meeting. If he needs to, he can turn off the camera, leave the room. He can take his computer with him if he wants to know what else is going on. But that way he is able to keep going, and he can also write in the text box. If he doesn't want to verbalize, utilize the text box. Yeah, of course.
Oh, sorry.
One thing with that is write down with your child a story of what he wants at that time, and then, things he wants to change. And, you know, time, world, the things, and have that there. And then also, if y'all are on two different, first, make sure that, you have some communication with them, like Facebook or Discord.
Yeah, like we'd message back and forth throughout.
Yeah, I talked to Lily.
About their IDP.
Yeah. The other thing I'll add on to that is like, I just started that with my vision specialist. So we started writing down what we want to add in for the vision accommodations that I need. So have him gradually work on it throughout the year. Don't say week before, hey, we got to get X, Y, and Z done. Keep like a notebook. Like I have a purple notebook with pink tie-dye duct tape on it and a little star pattern. That's my notebook. So I have everything written down in there. And then throughout the year, as issues occur, I write down, you know, this is what happened. This is the room. This is the exact time that it happened. And then I'll also keep a copy of my IEP with me. And anytime a teacher doesn't follow something on my IEP, I have a different color for each class and I write a little tick mark. So we know exactly what teacher when isn't following the accommodation. And then I can go back throughout the year and add it in. And then the week before, you then look over all of the notes and compile, you know, level 1, level 2, level 3 of what we need to talk about.
I just want to add real quick, sorry. I don't know if they can see me on the Zoom.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is my kiddo's 504 book. And it has everything in it. And from genetics to resources and everything. When you show up at one of these meetings, if you show up with a 3-ring binder that looks anything like this, they're gonna take it seriously, okay?
Yeah.
And I tell every new parent that has a 504 IEP, even if you fake it till you make it, fill this thing up with empty paper,
Yep.
a couple documents from your doctor, and they're gonna go, holy cow, they know what they're doing. And not every kid can advocate for themselves the way that Lily does. And I am just so over the moon proud of you because it is so hard to self-advocate. So making sure that you as a parent don't let the educators and the staff bully you into something they want to do is even more important, because like Lily said, the meetings go quick because they just want to get over it, but you need to add stuff and never be afraid to readdress it. Like Lily saying she makes ticks and adds stuff into her folder, but when a moment comes up, you can say, hey, listen, like the trash can really needs to be moved from the front door because my kid can't get out of that door quick enough if there's a fire. You know, like weird stuff like that doesn't make any sense to anyone. So just show up and fake it till you make it, y'all. And I'd be more than happy to talk to you about that too, because I'm super passionate about that as well. All right.
My granddaughter has an issue with her her urinary tract stuff. Suffice it to say that they're supposed to let her go if she says she has to go. They can't tell her to hold on because it could get her really sick. So my daughter told her, if they won't let you go, just pee right there.
On the parent side of that, keep every single documentation since the kids started school. I have 3-inch binders, still working on them, full of every single document that's ever come home from school, whether it's, you know, nurses' passes saying, oh, you went to the nurse for this and this and this on this date. Keep everything you have. Because then it'll, you know, if they say, oh, well, this hasn't been an issue until now, flip back, here's 5th grade. This was an issue, it didn't get addressed. It's not getting addressed now. So, yeah.
And one thing is that the first time I went into a IEP, and we called it ARD in Texas, my friend, I came back as an attorney, and they were like, hey, can you come and do this ARD meeting for us? And I was like, okay, I'm gonna learn all sorts of stuff about it. And going in and seeing the difference between having an attorney in that room than not having an attorney. You know, like, you know, this is my best friend. She has 3 kids that all had IEPs. And the last one, she was just like, hey, can you just, you know, show up? And, you know, I'm gonna give you all the information and stuff. And I'm like, I'm gonna learn it all. So I'm gonna just do it. And but you know, they walked out and they're like, holy smoke. When we got the school attorney involved, and the school attorney was over there like, well, why don't we put this? Why don't we do this? Why don't we, you know, and just adding different programs on with this kiddo. And that they would never have with the other 2, same school, same people practically. And all I had to do was like breathe in the room.
Yep.
And every once in a while just add some stuff. And now, you know, when I from there, I started doing, you know, special education law in Texas and then over here. And when you get that attorney, then the school brings their attorney, and the attorney starts adding stuff that you need. And it's really weird, and especially if you'll say, hey, I'm going to record it. And I mean, I actually had the Union County special, or it's called exceptional children's attorney say, well, since we have witnesses and it's recorded, let's make sure that that gets done. And she'll also find out things that she doesn't know because she's not in all the school districts. And I've seen her ream people that because of busing issues. And other things like that, that I'm like, oh my God, I'm so happy she's upset with them. And so that it, and there are programs, like she's part of a program. There's children involved in that name.
Council for Children's Rights.
Thank you. I didn't know the first, like Coalition of Children's Rights, but I got the last part, but it's 5 o'clock and my brain is like, and there are programs out there such as Council of Children's Rights and also people that do pro bono because of sliding scale stuff. You know, you can like pay it out and all sorts of stuff. But to have that representation, because sometimes it just helps. I don't know why it should help, but it does.
Last thing got a lot better.
We're more of us across the state. There are only about 30 of us that represent students.
30, and there's 30,000 students just in Union County.
There's
That,
almost 3,000 in my school.
and just in special education is between 39 and 4,900. We've lost 1,000 in Union County that's going to public school. So they haven't came back, don't know where they went to. We didn't have that many kids pass away during COVID. So it's not that, thank God. I'm just saying that there's not, you know, they went somewhere. And my kid actually did. He's homeschooled because I realized he just learns stuff when he wants to. And now we're having to fight over why he needs to learn algebra. Because he's like, if it's useful, I'll learn it.
That's fair.
And when it is, I will learn it.
It's a very fair fight. I strongly agree with this.
Oh, my spouse is an engineer. I'm a finance major. I'm like, you know, he does his.
Calculating DPS.
No.
No, we played the English.
He did.
Sure, somebody.
One of the teachers told me when I was my daughter doing better in algebra, she said she's probably not going to need it. And my daughter's going for her PhD and she's an engineer. So algebra, you know, seemed to make sense, but it actually.
And that's one thing, like when he plays games, Kerbal Space Center, he actually had equations out to figure out how to land the items. So he's teaching himself algebra and things like that that he doesn't know. I have to like sneak it in. Like, we're not learning anything.
We're just doing.
And because he was one of those that was quiet and everyone just thought that, you know, he knew what he was doing because he's so quiet, he had a great vocabulary and all this stuff. But then if you actually made him read, he wasn't able to read in second grade. And now, since he wants to play video games that require reading, he also even knows the Minecraft language that's in the books. He can decode those. He's taught himself how to do Morse code and that language. And he also has read the EULA games. I don't know why you would read that. But if he's reading and that makes him read. So any other questions? Let's see. We had one more thing to talk about. And that was under there. 5 minutes or however long we need to. What do you need from Union County? What do you want it to change? What do you like? And I'm going to get a whiteboard out, which is just a piece of paper right now. And listen to what y'all have to say. Not everyone just jump out and tell us. Do you like this conference? So you want that again?
Crystal, when you say Union County, do you mean Union County Pride or Union County in general?
Union County Pride, but if you want
thought-
to add Union County in general, we could, hey, let's go and talk to these people to build Union County.
Yeah. I think the conference is great. I think the little events that you're having for the families are great. I know it's really difficult here in Union County to find safe spaces. So that sucks. I'm excited about the new festival though, the new location.
Let me show you.
This isn't anything that. I just want to thank everyone that is involved in County Pride. As someone that lives in Mecklenburg and sees how big the festival is there, visibility rate, and then coming to Union County, either for personal errands or just driving by, or coming to this conference 2 years in a row. And just seeing visibility is super important. Just knowing that you're here, that our children, the next generation, or anyone that is not out yet, has a safe space that they want it, need it. So thank you for all the work they do in these circumstances that you do it as well, because it takes a lot of courage and a lot of patience and a lot of time, obviously. So thank you all for putting this together.
Anyone on the board, if y'all will stand up. Yeah. This is our plan for this year. As you know that we did Hello Daddy. We made $6,275 out of that. That will go to being able to pay $1,050 to East Frank and their legal fund. East Frank is fighting some crazy people in regards to them protesting and doing things that it just sort of like, okay, we'll just make something funny. And they did a parody and now they're in court because of that. And then we're also able to give $500 to Gender Education Network and $250 to, and we've already done $250 to Gender Education Network. We'll do another $250. and then 250 to the P flag for designated to Union County. And then that also, we have 9 possible, but there's not really 9 clubs in the different schools. And we would be happy to give $100 to each of those. If they will take it. I've even thought about just sending $100 to the person, or it's like, here, here's $100 bill. And I'm like, it can be a parent of the person, it can be the sponsor, it can be the school representative that's a teen. I'm just so like, here, do something with it. And then we have this conference, and then we did go to USAP conference, which is the United States Association of Prides. And that's where I met Jane. We are both on USAP's board this year, and she was a keynote speaker. And so I walked right up to her. I was like, would you like to speak to some people in rural North Carolina? And she was willing to come here, but her family member is having a birthday. And so she's also going to be speaking tomorrow, geared to more teens and parents. And then our events is we're down penciled in for September 7th to the Waxhaw Downtown Park. And they're actually, like, we're having meetings, we're having walkthroughs, we're having all sorts of fun, exciting things for that. And the Waxhaw Police is actually nicer than Monroe Police, which basically Satan's nicer than Monroe Police. So then we are still looking for a place for the adult kickoff, which is so exciting that it's Friday, September the 13th, Friday the 13th. Like, I'm gonna wear something black. And then the festival is Saturday, September 14th at Union Indian Trail, Chestnut Park, and they've been great. They're actually giving us the park for free because they can do one waiver a year to a nonprofit. So it's not like they're giving it, it was the process, and they're actually abiding by the process. And then as you know, that we try to promote voting and stuff. So we will, the last 2 years, we've also done this. And then this year we're going to a bigger place because it's 2024 is going to be a big year for elections. And so we're going to have the candidate event. Hopefully we get more than the 2 to 5 people, which there's like 3 on this thing. So we at least get those 3 to, so it's at Waxhaw Tap House. And then our teen party is back in Indian Trail Town Hall. They've been great about protecting the teens. They don't allow them, the protesters, to get up to close to the building. It's 300 feet away. They can just yell at the trees all they want to. So that's what we're planning already, but we want to make sure that we are working through the different things, sort of like the family event. We're going to have it at a park this year, hopefully have some family friendly music, which means that I can't pick out the music, because what I think is family friendly is a wide more range than other people. Like, well, if you have kiddos, you get to listen to that, because my kiddo, we just was like, you get to listen to whatever. His first concert was Joan Jett, and he just thinks that Cherry Bomb is about explosions. So that's all that. Any other things? Anything up there? Have we lost them? No.
I'm still
You
here.
told me to stay muted. I stay muted. I'm good.
You're not supposed to let Crystal pick out the music.
Yep.
Mostly I picked out the music. Kara and I picked out the music, and some of it wasn't family friendly, which I don't think anyone like cussed or anything. It was just, so we're just letting people that know what Kid Pop is.
I don't even know what Kid Pop is anymore.
So, because I'm more of punk and screamo. So, but okay, if we have no more discussion, why don't we call it a day? And thank y'all so much for coming.
Thank you.
Tomorrow, please come back either in person or by Zoom. We will have Jane talking for the keynote speaking at 1 o'clock. Then we split up and teens will be on one side of the room and parents and adults will be on the other side of the room. Teens will be talking to Equality North Carolina on how to deal with the local school board and, you know, what is Tinker? How can you actually protest without getting in trouble? You know, all of that kind of stuff. And then on the adult side, we're going to have a suicide prevention under the QRP question. Don't get me out. Just go to that tomorrow. It's 2 hours and it will help with that. And then we come back and we will have Joshua Jernigan talk about something Joshua will talk about.
PSA is what it says on.
That's it.
Can I ask, do you know
Yes.
about how many kids are supposed to potentially come tomorrow?
We have 11 people and I don't know what their ages are. We're just going to
Like
split up.
11 kids? Like
I'm sorry.
11 kids?
No, we have 11 people signed up.
Oh, okay.
So if you'll have tomorrow, you can be, the only thing that we're not going to give access to, except if you are a person of teen age that has needed to sign up as a Zoom participant, you will get access to the Zoom for that side, but we're not going to have that out anywhere other than for them to talk. So if you have need for that, so that they can talk and they don't have to be out in
So basically, the Zoom will be for the kids. And
yes.
not, yeah.
But the adults will have, we can do that one on the Zoom.
Okay. I'm going to try my best to bring Nick and myself tomorrow.
That sounds awesome.
I'm do my best. Okie
We
dokie.
all see y'all
Well,
tomorrow, and I am so sorry for that picture. Whoa, Jesus Christ.
Good.
Yeah, bye-bye.
All right. Bye, everyone.
Yeah.